Good morning, welcome to the channel. We just thought we'd quickly go through one of our new purchases, one of many because we buy a lot on this channel. So this is what we bought. We bought this to have a look at using it for all the installation, the amount of installation we're doing. We've done the past few jobs, we didn't have one, and we've tried all different methods, whether we use blades or internet this and reset blades and everything else, and we just thought we'd try this. So what we thought we'd do is we'd go through how we've used it, because we've been using it for a few days now. Pros and cons. There isn't many cons, but there's a couple of things to remember. So I bought this kit. Like everything else, there's different kit forms. I had to buy that blade separate, which is the tough blade for this type of insulation. But what you do get in the kit is you get this one, which is the blade for rock wool insulation and cavity bats. So that comes in the kit. You get this roller here, which what happens is that fits onto there when you're using that other blade, and you get that fits on there like that. You get your rock wool on your base, like we've got two chipboard floor in here, and you hit rock wool there, and you sit that on your rock wool and you just run it through like that, which I thought was quite a good bit of kit. So what else have I got in here? You get this lovely book that you can read whilst you're having a poo or having a kip, whatever you want to do. And then you get a charger, and I had 2 batteries, so that's the kit that I had. All I had to buy separate was this, because I hadn't got it, because I use a lot of Metabo stuff, so I bought this rail connector for me cutting across that way. Excuse me. However, we've discovered that for us it's better to cut across the sheet, and I just have a 1200 wide, like that. So I try, rather than cutting it a long length, it's easy to get it in. And we've got a carve out for lights, which you'll see if you have a look at the channel. We can see where we're using it, which is the insulation episode of the loft conversion series. So you can see then where it will benefit for us to cut it this way rather than along its length. Hence, I'm just using one rail. Okay, so as I said, we've been using it for a few days now. So this is the method I've been using. If you just pan back a bit, Mark, you can see we've set ourselves up some trestles, a couple of chipboard floors, and this is where we've got our setup to cut it all. Now I've seen a few other reviews on this, and there's a lot of elaborate things being made to satisfy the need to cut this, but I think this is probably the most practical one, shall we say. There's nothing being made. This is stuff you'll have on site. You'll have a couple of chipboards, you have a piece of ply, everyone's got trestles, and everyone's going to have a relatively sized room to put it in, whether it's up the loft or whereas we are on the first floor, because if you remember from the series, if you've seen it that is, we've knocked out and dropped the floors. As you can see, we've dropped all the ceilings. So we haven't used anything that you shouldn't really have on site already. So what I'm going to go through now is, this is me just cutting it and how we're using it. So first of all, dust extraction is important. I've got this little Metabo thing, battery operated, works really well for this. Plug it in there and it fits straight onto this socket, which is great. Now the first thing I want to mention is, I've found the best method for me is to mark my measurement. And if I just point something out to you before we carry on, if you look on there, can you see that on camera, Mark? That FS 50mm, can you see that on camera? You can, can't you? Just about. Now, if you've used Festool before, FS is the rail. That's what it stands for. It's just the use of the rail. Now, I don't know what I don't know whether that's FS is short for the German of rail, guide rail. I don't know. So, 50mm on there. Then says to me, because this is how it clips on the rail, Mark, you've got a little pan in there. This, again, sorry, I forgot to mention this plate. This plate comes in the kit as well, and it just enables you to cut like that. And it has got a bit of a groove there, look, like a saw has, to follow a line. If you're going to just follow this dotted line, you can follow that. And either side of that is either side of the blade, which I think is really good. Now, the only thing I've found, as I've already said, is that 50mm is, from there, is this side of the blade. Which means that if you're cutting it in this instance, if you're going to come around this side, Mark, so you can get the orientation of it. What I'm doing is I'm cutting, this is my board, and I'm cutting, this is my cut that I want. So it falls away and everything's supported all on this side, which I think safer. So you clamp this down, you find 398, and if you plus 50mm, what happens then is you lose the thickness of your blade off this board. So this would be 396. So all I'm having to do is, which is a bit of a downside, is that I'm having to, it's quite simple maths really, I'm having to add on 52mm onto that to enable me to get back to that mark, because I'm the wrong side of the blade. So if you look there then, Mark, when that sits on there, like that, can you see that? How it sits on the rail, if you look at it, which as you can see, it's the rail the opposite way around to would you for the track saw. So it sits on there, which is brill. But the 50mm mark is the wrong side of the blade. So all you have to do is add on 2mm, which is the thickness of the blade. That's the first thing. The only time that's different is if you're on your last board and you're putting your rail and sitting it on the piece that you want, and I ended up with a bit of an offcut. That's the only time it works, because you're working opposite then. That's when it works. But there's a little bit of footage after this to show exactly what I mean with that, just so you can get it in your head. But yeah, that's the only downside is just remembering to put your 52mm on rather than your 50mm. So if I just set this up for you now, so all I've done is I've added 52mm onto there, which means I've got 450. So I've got to mark this end and I mark that end up there, and then I've just put one clamp on it. That's all I've been doing. Clamp it down, make sure it stays on my mark. And all I've been doing then is I've just been holding that end and running the saw through. So I'll just do a start, and I'm not going to cut a whole board, but what I will say is this does tend to get a bit caught, because what happens is when you cut this board, it sticks to this. Now whether a bit of silicone spray might solve it, I don't know, but I might try it at some point. But all I've found to do is, when you're cutting through, especially when you do the first couple of 100mm, because it's still quite tight, when you start to cut the board, it does open up the cut a little bit, like cutting anything. So I found if you just tilt it backwards and forwards like that, it does make it a bit quicker. So I'll just do a cut now, and we'll show you obviously underneath how it's cutting and how it sits on the rail, and then at the end we'll show you how square it is. See, it's relatively quick as well, which is nice. And if you can see there, I haven't got a square in my pocket, but I have actually, sorry, yeah. So you can see that there's a little bit there, but in fact that's a little bit that I've done. Look, that's how square it is. That's square, that is, which helps, like I've just talked about, or just when you're doing after this I'll show you the footage of how tight it is upstairs, and I'll talk about the benefits of using this and setting out your noggins and your rafters first. So yeah, so that's it really. That's all I wanted to do, is go through how we use it. And like I said, I'll show the footage of what I mean with regards using this the opposite way to benefit from the 50mm offset that's already set into the plate. So I talked about the setting of this, and I mentioned the fact that the 350 that's marked on there in terms to blade. What I was saying, if I haven't explained it very well, is if you've got your full sheet, I'll just go back a little bit, if you've got your full sheet on there and you want this as an offcut, you need to add 2mm extra onto your line, because it's the wrong side of the blade. The only time it's going to work in terms of the offset, the 50mm, is this is my last piece now. So I've marked, I want 350, so I've marked there at 300. Just turn these lights down a bit. So I mark there at 300, same there, and then I'll set that like that. And now what happens is it will take off 50mm, so I'm left then at a 350 mark. But like I've already explained, if I wanted this part and I was cutting it off, it'd take an extra 2mm off because it's the wrong side of the line. So let's explain that one. But I'll answer any questions I need to in the comments as always, but that's when it works. It's when you're going to use your rail on the actual piece you want, because this is stable. But my opinion is, if you're going to use it this way, you don't want to be putting this on the little piece is going to drop off every time, because it won't work, will it? It's not safe. So there we are. That's what I mean about the 2mm extra that you got to add on. To show the benefits of using that saw, this is what you end up with. You end up with a really tight joint because of how square it is, and the fact you're using the rail, we haven't got any issues. I mean, we've had to foam a couple where you get for example, where you get sort of that scenario there. But there's only so much you can do when it comes to that kind of thing. But this goes in tight in conjunction with, and I think I mentioned it in one of the couple of episodes before, when we set these flat roof rafters out, we used a 400, you see it on there, 400 noggin in every space. So we set one, used the same 400 noggin, and then set this one against it, and so on and so on all the way across. And then we pattern cut that end as well, and we pattern cut this end. So in this instance, you can sort of see 400 on there. Yeah, there's a 402, but that's a bit of twist maybe, and they've just gone in perfect. So it just pay to take the time to use a noggin to get your base square for this reason. Whether you're using one of that Festool saw or whether you're cutting by hand, need to try and get them square. So there we are. That's just the benefits that we thought we'd show you of using that Festool saw. As always, if you want to ask any questions in the comments, please feel free to do so, and I'll answer them for you. But apart from that, thank you for watching.